So this is the final member for Team XF. By the way, Devour's pissed. So we have Seekers versus Metalborg. And yeah, I say again, Devour is pissed at what happened. Because he feels like he would have won if Callum hadn't risked, which, to be honest, is really, 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 really debatable. Because Devour would have had no hand, he would have literally been top decking. The critical trigger that came up from the top of the deck would have been his draw. And even if he had gotten the one heal trigger and nothing else, I have a feeling Callum would have had guard. If not, he could have afforded 1 damage. So the odds of him winning on that turn with all of that are really low. I mean, there's a chance a crit could have been at the top of his deck, but that's literally calling the risk luck sacking at that point is literally calling the kettle black. Metalborg, Russian Blizzard, Counterblast 1. When the unit attacks a Vanguard, whether it hits or not, pay the cost. If you do 2 of your Vanguards, up to 2 of your Vanguards, get plus 3k. So yeah. I like how they have all these cards, and yet the Metalborg power includes the boost. I mean, it's really good and necessary if you don't have the 10k booster, but because they have a 10k booster, so that's 10 to 17. And FrozenFang has to take 3 damage. He gets a draw trigger out of it, so he gets a draw. I'm guessing that 10k shield there was from him guarding the first attack. So grade 2, here comes Blaster Blade. And here comes another Blaster Blade, and he's going to counterblast 1 and kill the Blizzard. To kill Russell Blizzard. Which sounds like a legitimate name, now that I look at it. Grangle Seeker. If a unit's attack hits that's boosted that card, and Blaster Blade Seeker is in the same column, you can put a card in your hand into the bottom of the deck to draw 1 and unflip 1. Really good with Legion, because it gets a 28k column and you get an unflip and a hand swap if it hits. Using it in the left or right circles makes a 15k column for the skill. Which is good since his opponent is at grade 2, but going to grade 3 it's different. Callum has 2 cards in hand. I'm really hoping that one of them is a grade 3. I don't even care what grade 3, just a grade 3. Okay, he's got a grade 3. He can't Legion, but Uru Buster is there for when he can. Of course, technically that doesn't mean much because when I keep saying FrozenFang, but it's FrozenFang. That's just odd. Okay, when FrozenFang Legions, he can use File Skill to put it into the soul, call a Blaster Blade Seeker from in the deck, and then use Blaster Blade Seeker to retire Uru anyway. So he pretty much just had Uru there as an attacker. Also, he might be good counterblast bait because remember, if he rides Sing Saver, I think it takes like a counterblast 3 to do its skill. No, it's counterblast 2, Soul Blast 3. I'm thinking of Alfred, Monarch Sanctuary, which was counterblast 3 and Soul Blast 2. In hindsight, those costs are really fucking similar. And he decides with the last attack to limit his column options for the next turn as much as possible by going for Sinric. And here comes Sing Saver. He might Legion, but if he does the limit break Soul Blast, not the limit break, the Legion skill, Soulmate Legion, then it's honestly really too early to do that. Because keep in mind, even if you manage to have the damage to do it a whole bunch of times in one game, it's still dependent on how many you have in deck. Which means counting the ride, you get a total of 3 per game, unless you Soul Blast. And that's if you don't get them in drive checks or just drawing them. Okay, so he's gonna call Blaster Blade, he's gonna counterblast 1, and Uru Buster is gonna die. Because really, no one wants to deal with that. Honestly, if I was Callum, I would have waited a turn to Uru Buster, but he did it to instill pressure. And in the sense of what he did, it was a good idea, because FrozenFang has almost no hand. And he calls a unit anyway. So that Blaster Blade Seeker in the rear that's not being boosted by anything is probably going to go for Lionetter. Honestly, if I was FrozenFang, I would have called that behind the unboosted Blaster Blade Seeker so I could attack the Vanguard for all those attacks. He can't Soulmate Legion, so that doesn't matter, but it was going to attack for 22 anyway, and his opponent has 3 cards in hand. He wasn't going to guard. He wasn't going to guard. If Callum can get Dreon up to 30,000 power, he might win next turn. If he can pump that unit up to 30,000, he might win next turn. Of course, it's heavily dependent on if he criticals, but I'm just saying that's a very high possibility. Because I don't see, even though he won't have the only guard with zeros condition, unless he drew a perfect guard in the opening turn, and it's still there, unless he drew a perfect guard and it's still there in his hand, he's literally not going to be able to guard this upcoming onslaught. So let's see if he can do it. That's +6, 3 per unit. So that's going to be hitting for 26. Oh, he did it. That's 31. That did it. That was enough. So it's 2 critical now. $34 to the Vanguard, 2 critical. A critical trigger ends this fight right here. And that's a critical trigger. This fight just ended right here. Unless a heal happens. Unless 2 heals happen. In a way it's hard to call that sack, because he literally did set up for that. But I admit it was kind of really good trigger timing. And yes, I will go as far as say yes, it was sack that he double criticaled. The next 2 units have to be heals. 2 in a row for Waiter to survive. And unfortunately he didn't. Good game, XF. Good team battle. That was really good. Hope to have another one.